But then in 2019, OpenAI revealed GPT-2, which they'd scaled up GPT into GPT-2. I think it was like February of that year. And they showed that it was able to do really longer text, entire paragraphs, articles. They got a bit nonsensical towards the end, but it was fascinating. And I read every single output that they had posted on GitHub, a repo for code, and they put all these different things that GPT-2 had written. And I was amazed. As a person who's a novelist who writes books, who also is following AI, I'm like, this is elite because I understand the kinds of cognitive thinking you have to do in order to generate this. And again, these AI work in very different ways than we do, but it was still generating interesting things. So I talked about that. I was on podcast talking about it, talked about how I think this is really a very interesting point in time. And then a year later, OpenAI reached out to me and gave me access to GPT-3 before it had been announced. And I started showing them a lot of different applications for it because I'd been thinking nonstop about GPT-2 and saw what the limitations were at GPT-3. I saw these capabilities. And at first, I thought I was going to do a startup. I actually built something called AI Channels. If you go look on the OpenAI website back June in 2020, it was a chatbot like ChatGPT. It could search the web. It had tool calling. It had all these sort of features we're used to now. The problem was in 2020 is that GPT-3 at that point was very slow and very expensive. It was 6 cents per thousand tokens, and it took a while to get a response back. And to do this, I had to have prompts that sometimes took up half or more of the context window. And I thought, I want to create something really good. I think we're probably the next iteration, GPT-4 or whatever's coming next would be better for this. And so OpenAI said, "Do you want to come work with us?" I said, "That sounds great." And so I went to work with OpenAI, and my title was Creative Applications. Basically, I was their first prompt engineer. I was in-house prompt whisperer. And when people, were trying to figure out how to do something with the model, they would ask Andrew, like, "Could you figure this out?" And I would just spend a lot of time and energy. I'm like, it was like a chimpanzee banging on coconuts, just trying to figure out how to get the thing to work, but started to just develop a reputation as a person that had a lot of intuition about how the models worked. And so spent time there figuring out different use cases, built out prototypes and say, let's try this and just sort of see like, is there a there there? And that was a really fun experience. So
A
I did
lot
that
of
for several
testing,
years.
right?
What's
A lot
that?
of a lot of testing.
Yeah, and but also like the researchers are great at their job. Like the researchers understand how to hit hard evals and how to look at that. I was looking at what are the things that we haven't thought about, or what else can these things do? Can I just get it to do something very different? If I see a little bit, if I get it to do a thing and it does something not the way I expected, I look at why it did the other thing and try to figure out, is this useful?
Hmm.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then I was asked by OpenAI to become their science communicator because they was helpful to have somebody. I was an engineer at that time, but it was helpful to have somebody who was an engineer who understood how these models worked, who then could talk to people like government, talk to the media, talk to other people about how these things work. So I spent 2 years as OpenAI science communicator, which was a very, very fun role. And then at the end of that, I just really wanted to play with the technology more. I just wanted to kind of get back to that. And I left and created a company called Interdimensional, which was basically just problem solving for other companies that were trying to deploy AI. Brought on a couple of the co-founders, started putting together fractional AI teams. We work with some very big clients now who basically are trying to solve ML problems. So started doing that, and but then a few months ago, my former boss, when I was the science communicator, came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a podcast. Would you be interested in hosting that for OpenAI?" I said, "Kurt, that sounds fun. I love the company and wanted to be in a situation where I could sit down and talk to people." So I said yes to that.